Hey guys, my name is Black Eye, a Rama main with about 3,400 worshippers, and in this video I'm going to teach you how to get better at playing Rama. I should quickly note that I play on the Xbox One, but this guide should still be effective if you play on PC or PS4. Before going any further, I want to clarify that this is a Rama guide. I will assume you already know the basics of how to play an ADC. That being said, most of what is in this guide will apply for all normal game modes including Joust, Arena, Conquest, etc. This guide will specifically teach you how to get better at Rama mechanically. If you would like to skip to a certain section of the guide, there will be a table of contents in the description of this video. I'm going to quickly brush over builds because once again this is a Rama guide, not an ADC guide. So there are generally 3 builds that people follow, one that involves Devourer's Gauntlets, one that involves Aussie, and one that involves Transcendence. In my opinion, Transcendence isn't optimal in Rama, so you'll need to decide between the Aussie build and the Devourer's Gauntlets build. My personal favorite build is Warrior Boots, then Devourer's Gauntlets, then Ichaival, then Kinsize, then Titan's Bane, and finally Deathbringer. If you don't like stacking Devourer's Gauntlets, then feel free to trade out Devourer's Gauntlets for Aussie, and get Aussie as your third item after Ichaival. If the opposing team is more tanky than average, then consider switching out Deathbringer for Executioner or another penetration item. If the opposing team is squishier than average, then consider switching out Titan's Bane for another crit item like Wind Demon. Now let's go over Rama's abilities. Before going into what your abilities do, you need to know how to level them. At level 1, I get my 1, at level 2, I get my dash, my 3, and at level 3, I get my 1 again. Then at level 4, you get your 2, and level 5, your ultimate. Then you're going to want to level up your 1 and your ultimate as much as possible, and then you're going to want to level up your 2 as much as possible, and then finally your 3. I will quickly summarize what each ability does just so you don't have to read an entire paragraph. Rama's passive is Astral Quiver. Rama's Astral Quiver generates an Astral Arrow every 12 seconds, and every basic attack decreases this cooldown by 2 seconds. Now I can't stress enough how important the 2-second decrease on the passive is every time you hit a basic. This means you're going to want to try and hit as many basics as possible, including on minions, on enemies, on jungle creeps, just wherever you can get a basic off of. If your passive isn't full, then you should try and hit basics to fill it up so you are ready for the next fight. Rama's first ability is Astral Strike. Basically, you toggle on your astral arrows that you generated from your passive, and these arrows slow enemies by 10% for 2 seconds, and they deal bonus damage as you increase it. Rama's astral arrows also pierce enemies and can go through walls. There's also one other perk that Rama gets when he activates his one that isn't stated in the description. The hitbox for your arrow becomes larger, making it easier to hit the enemies. Now how do you effectively use your one? Well, your 1 is your main lane clear, so you're going to want to use it to clear the minions. But you can also use it when fighting or boxing other players. What I see a lot of people do, which is a common mistake, is as soon as the fight begins they will pop their 1 and just use all their arrows at the very start of the fight. This is not very optimal because then at the end of the fight you won't have that many arrows for chasing them down if you're winning. What I do is I usually shoot 2 or 3 arrows at the beginning of the fight, and then while boxing I will keep generating more arrows to use at the end of the fight. This way if they're running away, then I can slow them down or get a couple cheap shots through a wall. Now that is for specifically one-on-ones. If you're in a team fight and all the enemies are grouped up, then of course you're going to want to pop your 1 to deal as much damage as possible. Or if one of your opponents is low health and another player is trying to body block for that opponent, then you could pop your 1 to shoot through the body blocker and kill the player behind them. Rama's second ability, Pick Me Up, has 2 effects. Rama immediately gains attack speed that increases as you level it up, and there is also a greater % chance of dropping an astral arrow if you combine both your 2 and your 1. Once again, there's a third perk to Rama's second ability that isn't stated in the description. This one is very small, but it is worth noting. The movement speed penalty that you get when you basic attack is reset when you use your 2. This allows you to basically get a miniature Fatalis effect for one shot if you shoot and pop your 2 at the exact same time. Now how do you effectively use Rama's 2? Well, it seems pretty simple, right? When you're in a fight, pop your 2 and you're good to go. This isn't the case though. A common mistake I see a lot of people do is every single time they get in a fight, they will just immediately pop their 2. You don't want to pop your 2 until you know you are going to fully commit to the fight. This is because your 2 costs about 100 mana, and let's say you use your 2 in every single engagement you get, you are going to lose around 400 to 500 mana every couple minutes just because you're popping your 2 every single time you get in a fight. And honestly, about 75% of those fights don't go till the end. It's usually a couple shots and then they back off. One of the main problems that I have as Rama is I struggle to maintain my mana, and using your 2 every single time you clear a wave or get in a fight just won't help the problem. So only use your 2 if you know you're going to fully commit to the fight. Rama's third ability, Rolling Assault, is your basic ADC escape or initiate. But it's also worth noting that if you have an Astral Arrow, then your first shot after Rolling Assault will cripple an enemy. This also deals bonus damage, and you have a Fatalis effect for 1 shot. Rama's dash isn't like any other ADC dash. It is really quick and can catch people by surprise if you use it correctly. Personally, I believe Rama's a passive god, so I don't use his roll to initiate unless we're already winning a team fight. But if you're in a one-on-one and you use your Rolling Assault to initiate and you lose the fight, you don't have an escape. So I usually just slowly try to engage in combat, and then I can use the roll to catch up to them if they're trying to retreat or to escape if they're winning. Since your next shot cripples after the dash, then if you are trying to catch up to a god with an escape like an Apollo or an Izanami, then after you do your dash, don't immediately shoot. Wait about half a second and then shoot. This gives the opponent time to react, turn around, and try to use their escape. But if you time it correctly, you can hit them with your cripple and cancel their dash. Also, because your dash is so quick, if you're against an enemy god that has a dash that can be cancelled by simply walking in front, then you could dash in front of them if they're trying to escape. Some examples are Khepri, Sobek, and Athena. Rama's ultimate ability is the reason that I love him so much. Rama's ult, Astral Barrage, he basically becomes CC immune and jumps in the air, and he shoots down 3 arrows, decreasing in radius and increasing in damage. So as you shoot more, then it deals more damage, but it becomes harder to hit. The phrase "practice makes perfect" is cliche, but it is very relevant when practicing hitting Rama ults. It can be very difficult to hit all 3 shots, especially on console, but the more you practice, the better you will get at it. You're just going to have to adapt to a style that works for you when hitting Rama ults, but the one tip I can give you is try to read your opponent and how they move. If you notice that your opponent doesn't really juke that much, then you don't really have to predict where they're going to juke. If you notice that they juke in like a back and forth pattern, then you know to alternate your shots between in front of them and behind them. Or if they're just completely sporadic, then you're just gonna have to try your best. But at the very start of the game, I try to see how good my opponent is, how he moves, and I can use that for future reference for when I'm actually ulting him and trying to kill him. When trying to hit blind shots, as in you don't know where your opponent is, if you hit a shot, then a number will pop up. That is how much damage you dealt on that shot. The way that the number moves is the direction that your opponent is moving. So if you shoot a guy and you see that the numbers are moving right and then quickly change to the left, then you know that your opponent switched directions and went left. Or if you shoot a guy and the numbers are going right and keep going right, then you know that your opponent is still moving right. This might sound strange, but you can use your ultimate to dodge abilities and potentially escape. So say you have all your abilities up except for your Rolling Assault, then you could ult and then wait for your Rolling Assault to come back, and then when you get back down, then it'll be back up and you could roll and try to get away. You could also cancel your ability early to catch them off guard and roll away, because sometimes they will try to time their abilities to when you come down. So if you cancel it early and come down, then they'll be caught off guard and they will potentially miss. I am now going to show you a clip where I use every single ability to its maximum efficiency. Overall, I think Rama is a great hunter to learn because he's in a perfect position. Unless Hi-Rez fucks up, he won't be too awful that he's unplayable or too broken where he's banned every game. He's also a very good god to learn how to hit basic attacks because his entire kit revolves around basics. So if you're struggling to hit basics, then just get good, dude. But real talk, if you're more ability based and not very good with your basics, then you might want to consider learning Rama just because his entire kit revolves around basic attacks. I hope you enjoyed this guide, and if there's anything that I missed out on, feel free to leave a comment. Alright, thank you for watching.